Mom kicked me out in a storm over my sister's lies. She texted, "That was perfect," not realizing Dad was reading it on the TV. He filed for custody. I, 16M, never thought my life would turn into a prime-time legal drama, but here we are. To understand how I ended up shivering on a porch while my world burned down and was subsequently rebuilt, you have to understand the players. There's me, just a guy trying to keep his GPA up and secure a scholarship so I can get out of this town. There's my dad. He's a high-end structural engineer. He works insane hours, travels constantly, and pays for everything. He's the stoic type, shows love through providing. He was the good guy, but he was distant, usually too exhausted to notice the rot growing in his own living room. Then there's my sister, 14 female. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is the golden child. The sun, the moon, and the stars revolve around her moods. If she failed a test, it was the teacher's fault. If she broke a plate, the plate shouldn't have been there. She learned early that tears were currency, and she was wealthy. And finally, Mom. Mom is a classic narcissist with a martyr complex. She viewed Sarah as an extension of herself, a mini-me that could do no wrong. Me? I was just like Dad, a utility, something to be managed, controlled, and blamed when the aesthetic of her perfect family cracked. The dynamic was simple. Sarah messed up, I took the fall, Mom praised Sarah for being brave enough to tell the truth, and Dad was kept in the dark, told only what Mom curated for him. That changed 2 months ago. Dad had just finished a massive project and bought himself one toy, a state-of-the-art home theater system. We're talking an 85-inch 8K screen, surround sound that shakes the floorboards, and a smart home integration hub that controlled the lights, locks, and cameras. He loved that thing. It was his sanctuary. He had to fly to Chicago for a week-long conference. Before he left, he gave us one strict instruction. No one touches the system settings and absolutely no parties. He looked at me when he said it, which annoyed me, but he also looked at Sarah. She smiled, that innocent, sickeningly sweet smile. "Don't worry, Daddy, we'll be good." 3 days into his trip, a massive storm system was rolling into the Midwest. Tornado watches, hail, the works. School was canceled early on Friday. I was in my room studying for AP Chem. Mom was out at her book club, which is just wine and gossip. I heard the bass thumping around 4 p.m. I went downstairs and found Sarah had 4 friends over. They weren't studying. They were raiding the liquor cabinet Dad kept locked. Sarah obviously found the key. They were mixing expensive scotch with Mountain Dew and jumping on the furniture. "Get them out," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Mom's going to be home in 2 hours and the storm is getting bad." "Shut up, loser," she slurred. She was tipsy at 14. "Mom doesn't care. She lets me do what I want." "Dad cares," I countered. One of her friends, a guy named Kyle, laughed and threw a heavy crystal coaster at me. I ducked. It missed me, but it didn't miss the new TV. Crack! The sound was sickening. A spiderweb fracture bloomed across the center of the $5,000 screen. The room went silent. The music stopped. "You're dead," I whispered. Sarah's face went pale, then red, then contorted into a mask of pure malice. She screamed at her friends to leave. They scrambled out the back door just as the rain started hammering the roof. I started taking pictures of the damage. "I'm sending these to Dad," I said. Sarah snatched my phone. I grabbed it back. She threw herself onto the floor, knocking over a side table and ripping her own shirt. She started screaming, hyperventilating, clawing at her own arms. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. The front door opened. Mom was home early. She walked into chaos. Broken glass, the smashed TV, the smell of spilled scotch, and Sarah screaming on the floor looking like a victim of assault. "He hit me!" Sarah shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "He brought his friends over and they got drunk and they broke the TV, and when I tried to stop them, he threw me down." It was a lie so bold, so instantaneous, I was almost impressed. "That is a complete lie," I shouted. "She had people over. Check the security "Shut up," Mom screamed. She didn't check for bruises. She didn't smell Sarah's breath. She didn't look at the spilled Mountain Dew. She marched up to me and slapped me across the face, hard. "You violent little monster," she hissed. "I knew you were jealous of her, but this? Destroying your father's things? Attacking your sister?" "Mom, look at the TV. Look at the liquor. Smell her breath." "Don't you dare accuse her," Mom yelled. She was in a frenzy. "Get out." "What?" "Get out of my house. I don't feel safe with you here. Sarah doesn't feel safe." "Mom, it's a severe storm warning. There are tornadoes spotted 2 counties over. You can't—" "I said get out." She grabbed my arm and dragged me to the front door. I tried to resist, but I was in shock. She shoved me onto the porch and slammed the deadbolt. "Mom!" I pounded on the door. "Mom, please, it's freezing." The wind was howling. The rain was coming down in sheets, instantly soaking me to the bone. The sky was a bruised purple-green. I didn't have my jacket. I didn't have my car keys. I had my phone, but it was at 4%. I stood there for 10 minutes, banging on the door, screaming that I was sorry, that I'd fix it, just let me in. Nothing. I ran to the garage, but the keypad was disabled. She had locked me out of everything. I huddled in the corner of the porch, behind a pillar, trying to stay out of the wind. I texted Dad. Call failed. The storm was messing with the towers. Inside, I could see the warm glow of the living room lights through the bay window. I crept over and peeked through the slit in the curtains. What I saw broke something inside me that I don't think will ever heal. They weren't crying. They weren't scared. Mom and Sarah were sitting on the couch, eating popcorn. They were laughing. Sarah was acting out the attack, throwing her hands up, mocking me. Mom was pouring herself a glass of wine. They had turned on the broken TV. The crack distorted the image, but it still worked enough for them to use the smart features. Mom had mirrored her phone to the screen so they could scroll through social media together on the big display. I watched as a text notification popped up on the giant screen. It was huge. I could read it clearly from the window. It was from Mom to her friend Linda. Finally got rid of my name. Little Psycho is outside washing away his sins. Told Dad he ran away. House is ours tonight. Sarah was perfect with the tears. LOL. Sarah read it on the screen and high-fived Mom. My blood ran cold, colder than the rain. They weren't just punishing me. They were enjoying it. They had framed me, endangered me, and now celebrating. I was about to throw a brick through the window when a text came through to my phone, 1 bar of service. It was from Dad. "Do not move. Police are 2 minutes away." I saw it. I stared at the phone. I saw it. 2 minutes later, 3 squad cars pulled into the driveway, lights blazing but sirens off. The officers sprinted up the steps. I was shivering so hard I couldn't speak. One officer threw his rain jacket over me immediately. "Are you my name?" he asked. I nodded. "Is your mother inside?" I nodded. They pounded on the door.
Door. "Police! Open up!" I watched through the window as the color drained from Mom's face. She scrambled to hide the wine. She fixed her hair. She put on her concerned mother face. She opened the door. "Oh, thank God," she cried. "Officer, my son, he had a psychotic break. He ran out." "Ma'am, step aside," the lead officer said, his voice like granite. "Excuse me? You can't come in here without a— We have probable cause regarding child endangerment, and we are conducting a welfare check based on a report from the homeowner," the officer said. He pushed past her. Another officer guided me inside. The warmth hit me like a physical blow. Mom looked at me with venom. "What did you tell them?" she hissed. "He didn't tell us anything, ma'am," the officer said. "Your husband did." Mom froze. "My husband is in Chicago." "Yes, and he's on the phone with my sergeant right now." Mom looked at the TV. It was still mirroring her phone. The text to Linda was gone, but the connection was still active. Then the TV screen went black for a second, and the input switched. Dad's face appeared on the 85-inch screen. He was in his hotel room wearing a headset. He looked terrifying. I have never seen my father look like that. He wasn't yelling. He was dead calm, which was infinitely worse. "Hello, Martha." Dad's voice boomed through the surround sound. Mom screamed. Sarah dropped her popcorn ball. Dave, I can explain. The technology, it must be glitching," Mom stammered, backing away from the giant screen like it was a monster.
I installed a Wisecam V3 in the corner of the ceiling last week to monitor the new system. It has high-definition video and audio. I got a motion alert when Sarah started throwing the party. I watched the whole thing. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I saw Sarah break the TV. I saw the frame-up. I saw you drag my son out into a storm with a tornado watch in effect. And then, because you are so incredibly stupid, you mirrored your phone to the TV right in front of the camera lens. I read your text to Linda. It was a joke. We were just venting. You kicked a minor out in a storm, the officer interrupted. Ma'am, you're being placed under arrest for child endangerment and neglect. You can't do this. I'm his mother, Mom shrieked as they cuffed her. She looked at Sarah. Tell them, Sarah. Tell them he hit you. Sarah looked at the cops, then at Dad's giant face on the screen, then at me. Self-preservation kicked in. Mom made me do it, Sarah wailed. I wanted to let him in, but she said no. She said we had to teach him a lesson. Mom looked at Sarah with pure betrayal. You little liar. They hauled Mom away. The police let me pack a bag. They told me Dad had arranged for me to stay at a hotel near the station, where his uncle, my uncle, was already driving to meet me. Sarah was taken by CPS temporarily until Dad could fly back the next morning. The next 6 months were a blur of legal warfare. Dad didn't just file for divorce, he went nuclear. He hired a shark of a lawyer who specialized in high-conflict custody cases involving narcissists. He filed for emergency full custody of me. Surprisingly, he also filed for custody of Sarah, though he sent her to a therapeutic boarding school immediately. Mom tried everything. The entitlement was staggering. The dirty tricks. The false PPO. She tried to file a personal protection order against Dad, claiming he was abusive and had hacked the house to spy on her. The judge threw it out because Dad owned the house and the cameras were in common areas. The financial drain. Before Dad could freeze the assets, she tried to drain the joint savings account, $45,000. She claimed she needed it for legal defense. Dad's lawyer traced the money. She hadn't paid a lawyer. She had put a down payment on a luxury condo she couldn't afford. The judge ordered the funds frozen and returned. The school campaign. She went to my school and tried to pull my records, claiming Dad had kidnapped me. She told the guidance counselor I was on drugs. Dad's lawyer sent a cease and desist so thick it thumped when it hit the desk, along with the police report from the storm night. The school banned her from the premises. The courtroom showdown. The climax happened during the temporary custody hearing. Mom represented herself for part of it because she fired her first lawyer for not being aggressive enough. She stood there wearing a modest dress, tears in her eyes. Your Honor, she said, voice trembling, my husband is a controlling tyrant. He uses technology to stalk me. That night, I removed my son from the home because he was violent. I was protecting my daughter. The judge, a stern woman who looked like she had seen it all, looked over her glasses. Mrs. Last Name, you are aware there is video evidence. It's doctored. Deep fakes. He works with computers, Mom shouted. Dad's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we would like to submit Exhibit A, the unedited cloud footage from the home security server, time-stamped and verified by a third-party forensic digital analyst. They played the video. The courtroom was silent as everyone watched Sarah smash the TV. They watched the fake crying. They watched Mom slap me. They heard the thunder. And then the kicker. The video showed them on the couch. The camera zoomed in digitally on the 85-inch screen. Little Psycho is outside washing away his sins. LOL. The judge paused the video on the LOL. She looked at Mom. You were laughing while your son was outside in a severe weather emergency? I was in shock, Mom stammered. You texted, that was perfect, the judge read from the transcript. You conspired with a minor to file a false police report against another minor. You endangered a child's life. The ruling. Dad got full legal and physical custody. Mom was granted supervised visitation only, pending a psychiatric evaluation. She was ordered to vacate the family home immediately. Because the house was purchased prior to the marriage, Dad bought it when he was single, and we live in a state where separate property is distinct. She had no claim to it. But Dad wasn't done. He sued her for the damage to the electronics and the emotional distress caused to me. It sounds petty, but in the divorce settlement, it meant she got nothing. The forensic accountant found she had been siphoning money into a secret account for years. That money was considered her share of the marital assets, which she had already spent. The aftermath. I live with Dad now. He cut back his hours to be home more. We actually talk. We go to therapy, both of us. He apologized for not seeing it sooner. He admitted he liked working away because he didn't want to deal with Mom, and he realized that made him complicit. Sarah is still in the boarding school. She hates it, but at least she's getting grades for the first time in her life. She blames Mom for everything, of course, but at least she's away from the toxicity. Mom is living in a small apartment 2 towns over. She works as a receptionist now. She texts me sometimes, long rambling messages about how Dad brainwashed me and how she forgives me for ruining the family. I don't reply. I just screenshot them and send them to Dad's lawyer. Last week, we finally replaced the TV. Dad and I set it up together. We put on a movie, made popcorn, and sat there while a storm raged outside. "You warm enough?" Dad asked. "Yeah, I'm good." And I meant it.
The story? If you're going to frame someone and kick them out in a storm, maybe don't broadcast your confession on a giant screen monitored by the guy who pays the bills. Technology is a beautiful thing. Want more stories about people digging their own graves with smartphones? Subscribe, because my Aunt Karen just got an iPad and I have a feeling the sequel is coming soon.